Happy Mask Monday. I do have a mask on, but it's a jelly-like looking one. See, it jiggles like jello. It's Earth Harbor Glow Juice Refining Enzyme Mask. Look it out. It's the kind that's just going to dry up and you wash it off, I'm sure. Doesn't have directions, so I'll leave it on the usual 10 or 15 minutes or so. If I can get the lid back on. It's got a paper top in it that needs to go down, I think. There we go. Alrighty. Alright, Earth Harbor Glow Juice. So, we're going to have a story time. I know you like my story times, but first we're going to do a Heaven Panty. So let's see what I got. Let's see what things are holding here. Heaven Panty, we have updated our sizing chart. Scan our QR code for updated sizing chart. Get $5 credit for visiting our Facebook page. Get $5 credit when you complete our customer satisfaction survey. So it's got a whole little letter about their sizing chart. Let's hope they didn't change the size I get, because what I've been getting has been fitting. Here's a little peek at some kind of flowered panty. I have one on that I got from last time that's see-through flowered. I hope this one's not see-through, because that makes me a little uncomfortable. This might be, nope, not the same. I like that it's got a big waistband. I like that. All right. Oops, no, don't get that. Little plastic thing that holds it on fell off and Kit was going after it. All right, it's got a nice big waistband and little leg bands. And it's cute. It's got little kind of fall looking flowers on it. So, let's see what this whole thing says. Give 20, get 20. There's returns. You can have a preference. They send you, the first time you get one, they send you a tape measure for sizing. Heaven Panties, I think it's $8.95 for the plus size per month. I get them free. I don't know why or how, but I just keep getting them free, so I keep showing them to y'all. Okay, now for story time, I thought I would go through my work history. I don't work anymore, but you know, just tell you what I've done over the years. As a teenager, I babysat and I worked fast food. And then I got married at 18 and went to Japan. And they wouldn't hire Americans for Japanese jobs, so didn't work the first 4 years. And by the time we got back from Japan, my voice is all, and all that drainage, allergy, getting fall, stuff dropping off trees, gonna be allergy time. Yeah, this is stiffening up. So when I got back, I had a baby, so I didn't work then either. So for the 15 years I was married, I didn't work. And then my ex-husband just left for his girlfriend. Well, actually, I asked him to leave because he was gonna be perfectly happy staying with me and her, and I'm like, nope, you gotta choose. So first couple jobs I did were just really yucky jobs, but I hadn't worked really a real job as an adult. So the first job I got was selling beer and nachos at the state fair. And then I got a job because my sister and I lived together for a little while and we could watch each other's kids. I got a job where I went in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you know how companies, big companies, sometimes have a cafeteria for their employees? Well, I worked at a company that did, and so I went in at 4 o'clock and I sliced meat and cheese for the sandwich bar, and then I ran the sandwich bar, and then I went home like after lunch. So 4 to 1-ish I'd work. But I was always afraid going in at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd fall asleep and cut my hand off using one of those electric slicer things. So then I went to Heald Business College, which was back in the day a thing. And it was expensive, and to graduate you had to type 60 words a minute for 5 minutes with 2 errors or less. And I could never do that. I could get 60 words a minute, but I had 5 errors, or I'd get 0 errors, but it'd be 58 words a minute. You know, it was just never quite that. And after a couple months of trying, that was the only thing I hadn't passed. I'm like, forget this, I'm just gonna get a temp job. So I did, I got a temp job. First one I got was, they had this huge room, probably 10 by 20 maybe, full of filing cabinets. And there was this other girl and I, and it was gonna be our job to go through their file cabinets and straighten them out, because, you know, stuff gets out of place, and purge some of the older stuff and all of that. Well, she lasted till lunch the first day. It was supposed to be a 1 or 2 week job for 2 of us, I think. 2-week job, I think, for 2 of us to get this done. And she couldn't stand it because it's boring as heck, you know, but, you know, it's a job, you do it, you know. So she left at lunch and never came back. And I finished it all in something like 4 days, something like that, less than a week by myself. So they were impressed with me. So then they gave me another temp job in another department. And I was there probably close to a year when they finally hired me permanent. And it was a company that made things for the government, one of those, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you jobs. I had a top secret clearance to work there. That's what took, you know, the year before they hired me permanent. I had to get that top secret clearance, which is a pain. You have to go back everywhere you've ever lived, all the addresses, all that stuff. It's a little easier now with the internet, but back then it was a little hard because I'd moved around a lot. Sorry. What I did was I was like a courier type person. There's big company, had lots of buildings, and I'd take stuff from this building to that building and help people out, you know, like they needed this, they needed that. And I had a day off, and there's this other girl and I that pretty much worked the same job, so we were often in the same place at the same time doing our little courier thing. We had a schedule, and I happened to take a day off, and her ex-boyfriend had worked there too. So, you know, you're supposed to not be able to get in the building, but he knew that the paint guys would leave the back door open a crack because of the paint fumes. And he snuck in that back door and he shot up the place, and he killed her and several other people. And I could have easily been there, so that was very sobering. And so I worked there a while, and then I eventually moved. I was in the San Jose area, and I moved up to Sacramento and got a job and worked at a company they repaired, had a clean room. If you know what a clean room is, it has forced airflow to keep out particles, and you have to suit all up like you're a hazmat person or whatever. So very strict, you know, there's an airlock, and then you go in and all that. And it was repairing hard drives. And back in the day, now they just chuck them, you know, but back in the day, they repaired them. And this is for especially you youngins that don't know this kind of thing. They repaired hard drives that were 10 and 20 megabytes, not even gigabytes, not terabytes, megabytes. And that's what drives had on it. I mean, most people had a 20 megabyte hard drive. That was what was in their computer. And we did a lot of work for Apple. We did a lot of repairs for they had one of their drives was called a widget. So we worked on widgets. So I worked I worked in shipping and receiving at first, and some guy stole some stuff and I got accused of it, but they couldn't prove it was me because it wasn't me. So they said, well, you can keep working here, but you have to change jobs and you have to work nights. With 2 kids, luckily my sister and I had bought a duplex together so she could kind of keep an eye on my kids at night. But my son was 10 or 11. The younger one was only 4 or 5, but you know, at least the older one was there, and then my sister was next door. And so I started working in a stock room, you know, issuing parts and stuff for the night shift. And then eventually they found out, gee, it wasn't me, and I got moved to days. And I was the one to always tell the buyers, the purchasing people, how much we needed and when we needed it and all that, because I was the one that saw it every day. So eventually I ended up doing the purchasing myself, and that's how I got into purchasing. Back in the day, that's kind of how it happened. Now they have a college degree in supply chain management and all that, but back in my day, back, you know, 30, 40 years ago, they didn't really have degrees in purchasing. So I stumbled into purchasing and was really good at it, really enjoyed it. And I worked there 10 years, I think. And they merged with another company, and they decided to bring their guy in to do my job from the other company they merged with. So they bring him in, they laid me off. They bring him in, gave him an assistant, paid him twice what they paid me. And then I heard through the grapevine, you know, after I got laid off, that he couldn't do the job that I did, even with twice as much money and an assistant, and they were regretting it. But then I was like, you know, I'm not coming back. So I worked temp jobs for a while, and then my older son, he worked at CompUSA, and the headquarters was in Dallas. So he decided to transfer out here, or got transferred out here or whatever. And my younger son had just gotten out of the fire academy, and it's hard to get jobs at the time in California without first working at places like down in Watts where they shoot at you and stuff. This is totally dry. So they, so he decided to come out to Texas too, figured he'd have better luck, and he did. So we all came out here, and it was God's planning, because we all came out here. We all got saved out here. My sons met their future wives out here, were lovely Christian girls. So it was all meant to be God's planning. After I got out here, I mean, I had 2 job interviews lined up before I even got here, because at the time I went ahead and started going to a newsstand and getting the Dallas Morning News newspaper, and they had a job section that was like this big. So I applied for a couple jobs. I got offered one job, and it was at a corporate headquarters, and I would have had to wear heels and pantyhose and suits and all that kind of stuff. Yuck. And so I went ahead and took the job, because, you know, you got to have a job. And they did the drug test, and I was supposed to start the next Monday. And I got offered another job where I could dress more casual with, you know, pants and stuff. So I bailed on the first job and took the second job, and it worked out good. I worked there 7 years in purchasing, even had several people under me for a while, but I don't really like being a supervisor, but you know, I was, so I did it. And then that company, they brought the whole, like, all of us into like a conference room and said, okay, we brought you in here to tell you we're laying off these 5 people. The company's struggling. So that happened 2 or 3 different times where they'd bring us in and tell us where they're laying off XYZ people. And then the last time they brought us all in and says, okay, we're keeping these 5 people and all of you are getting laid off. So I got laid off, and everybody else went out and got drunk, and I immediately went and applied for unemployment. And then the VP that was my boss's boss and I had gotten to be friends. He is a Christian man, and we just had a lot in common. And he had seen the handwriting on the wall, and he'd already gone to another company. So I called him up, and I'm like, you got anything for me? And he's like, as a matter of fact, I do. You can be my assistant and do purchasing for this repair area. And I'm like, you got it. So I got a job that same day. And that company, it was a telecom repair company. You know how they have these, you've probably never seen them, but they have these big banks of switchboards and stuff in big companies that run the telephones. We repaired that stuff, plus we repaired telephones. And a lot of this stuff was old equipment, so it was hard to find parts for it, but I did. So I worked there 7 years, I think. So I worked 10 years, 7 years, and 7 years, I think. So I was loyal to them, and I got laid off, and the third one I got laid off from. So the third one, the telecom company, I got really sick and I was in the hospital for 4 months. And when I came back, they can't get rid of you right away, but they waited a few months, and then they had a layoff for me and one other guy who was reaching retirement, and they didn't want to have to pay retirement for him. So they laid us off, and they were really just trying to get rid of us, because after me being gone 4 months, they'd already gotten somebody to take my place. So they just got rid of both of us. So I'm back working temp jobs again. So I worked a temp job for about a year. I went on 35 job interviews, and I go, it wasn't just jobs I applied for. I went on 35 actual interviews, and of that, 2 people got back to me and said, oh, we gave the job to somebody else. I mean, what did HR people do? I mean, that's so lazy to not, you have to just you can send a form, letter, email telling people they didn't get the job. That's just rude. So I finally took this job that was, it was a long commute. It was 80-mile round trip commute every day. And the boss was terrible. He treated me like trash, and I eventually ended up, from all the stress of that commute and terrible job, and my health was really bad, I ended up going out on disability, and that was the end of my job career. So mostly I worked probably 25 years in purchasing. I love purchasing. I mean, like that telecom job, there was some part they needed that you couldn't get anymore, and it took me a year, but I traced down what happened to the mold for it, because the company that had it quit making it, but they sold the mold to a company in Japan, and I was able to trace it through different ways. For a year it took me to find who had that mold and who was making that particular weird part, and then I was able to finally get the part. So I've just enjoyed that kind of research. One time I had one of my vendors that I talked to, she was telling me about her grandmother was from New York, and she was just this very queen type person, dressed to the nines all the time, but she was going through Alzheimer's, and she would drool and had to wear a bib and stuff. So she's like, I would love to get her a gold lame bib, but nobody makes that. And I'm like, give me a minute. And I got back to her later the day with a link to a gold lame bib I had found for her grandma. And since I worked at the telecom company, the marketing people, we sold headsets, and they wanted a clear mannequin head so you could take a picture of the headset on a head, but see all the stuff, it would be clear. So they started looking themselves instead of asking me to. And they're like, well, we spent 2 weeks trying to find this, and we can't find it, and could you look for it for us? And I'm like, well, why didn't you ask me in the first place? So I knew right where to go. I drove down to this place, got the mannequin head, brought it back, plunked it on their desk within 3 hours. I was really good at research. I'm still really good at research. You want anything found on the internet, I can find it for you. Alrighty, well, I need to wash this off, but I have a wet paper towel, but that's not going to get it all off, but it'll get a little bit of it off. So anyway, I hope you like this. That's my story time. My whole life, my whole work history in 15 minutes. Plus a pair of panties thrown in. I'm going to, later today, I did a, maybe tomorrow, later today or tomorrow, I had a giveaway going for my 750 subscriber giveaway. So if you haven't done that, get in there and get your name in the hopper, so to speak, because I'm gonna do the picking later today. Don't think there's a ton of competition. I think there's 20-something people maybe that have put their names in for, give them the secret word and all that. So go back and watch that if you want to win my little box of goodies. It's mostly makeup and skincare. In fact, I think it's all makeup and skincare. Well, there might be a piece of jewelry in there. Yeah, there's a piece of jewelry in there. So anyway, I love y'all, and if you don't know who I am, I'm Pat. That's the P part of Blessed GMP. It stands for Blessed Grandma Pat, because I am blessed, and I do Mask Mondays. I do unboxings, cooking videos, sometimes a crafting video. I started adding in a lot of shorts of my pup kit, and that's gotten me some new viewers. I think probably tomorrow maybe I'll do a Kit story for the new subscribers, so they know Kit's little history, since I think the last 10 or so subscribers I've got have all been because of Kit, not because of me. All right, love y'all. It's been 20 minutes. That's a long video, so I appreciate it if you watch this far. I'm not sure what I'll have for you the rest of the week, but we'll figure something out. Love you. Bye-bye.